a large part, I think, of what educators need to do because the education system, the way the approaches we take are always changing and evolving. And yes, we are not educating these children in isolation. And so it is within the context of society. And we all know that that plays a huge part in all things, the kinds of things we learn, how we learn, what we're being exposed to. And yes, the world that our children are living in now is very different from even the world that even we grew up in. And yeah, so even down to the way that we were taught in terms of methods and approaches, absolutely. And I think a key component is parent education. And where that sometimes gets skipped a lot is that then we need to educate the parents in what it is we're doing in the process so that there is understanding. Because yeah, a lot of times you give them that understanding and it takes away the uncertainty, the fear, the like, wait, what are you doing? And that desire to be like, oh, I need to protect when they understand and are given more explanation as well. And sometimes it is just a simple thing, a reminder or even of like, hey, this model of I do, we do, you do. And sometimes parents is like it's as simple as that of like, of course. And, hey, it's harmful for your children if you're skipping the you do part, right? Because then what's going to happen, they're not going to have you all the time. Their goal is to then be on their own. So what happens if we skip this you do part? It can be very detrimental. And that's obviously not what we're wanting. So I think you're right. I think a key part of it is just educating families and parents on the ever evolving nature of education and what it means for our children to be in the present context that they exist in, and they're learning, and allowing them giving them the tools, but then allowing them to navigate this world, that they're going to have to navigate independently, and that struggle is okay. And that failure, like you said, allowing them to fail, I think that's a big thing that, comes sort of unintentionally. Parents we don't want our kids to fail. We don't want them to feel that, but that it's a part of it, and that, failure is a big part of it. And I know, in my son's elementary school, they were big on doing that, first attempt in learning. That's what fail is. It's a first attempt in learning, and that growth mindset and really pushing. And that's important for these students to learn how to fail and how to struggle and how to not do well, because those are the big key moments. Those are
Yeah.
the challenges that we all have to navigate at some point or another, are inevitable. And so if we don't have the practice or we don't have the tools, then it's going to hit us that much harder when it does hit us indeed.
And I'll say, Danielle, the other thing that, and I want to leave this just as a question that maybe we'll loop back to later, but also like when we look at this data, we also have to ask the question: what are the skills that are not being reflected in the data that
Mm,
we're looking at? That also could translate into the new economy, as some will say, in this current economy, because maybe you have a student who, is in one of the lower percentiles in math, but this is also a student who, loves video games, has some, very introductory level coding skills. In this economy, that student could take concurrent enrollment classes, maybe take a couple of video game design classes, could have a portfolio, and without even directly going to college, could, work for EA or for Take Two Games because they have a portfolio, because many tech companies are not even requiring a college degree anymore.
Thank you for listening to the Willow Kids podcast.